Hi guys, I'm Scratch and today we're going to talk about how to pick recipes. There are lots of people out there telling you that this or that recipe are the best, and to be honest, if someone is telling you one recipe is the best in every situation, they are probably
a natural fucking idiot.
Whoa, Vinny, I am so sorry. When he isn't failing to rob bookies, he's a faithful Fix-It employee with thousands of hours in game. And although I wouldn't have worded it as he did, I do agree with his point. There is no such thing as a best overall recipe. There are better and worse ones, but which one is best very much depends on what you want to get out of it. So, today we're going to talk about the different factors you can use to judge recipes for yourself and choose the one that works for your needs. Whether that's picking what alt to choose from the MAM or what recipes to use in your next factory. So first, the most obvious one. What resources you have available to you in the area you've picked for your factory is going to be one of the main things that decides what recipes you pick, both in what nodes there are in that area, but also how pure they are. This may mean using recipes like the pure ingot ones to get the most out of each resource node, or it could mean using recipes like iron wire that allow you to use the most common resource on the map, iron, and could free up other resources like copper to be used elsewhere in the factory. Another thing to consider is the rarity of the resource you're using. For example, Caterium is much more rare than iron or copper. So, if you need quickwire, maybe look at using the fused quickwire recipe, where you are using less Caterium and getting more quickwire out. Also, remember in the late game, the converter will enable you to convert certain resources into other ones. So factor that into your choice. And talking of the late game, don't forget to think about what you may need a lot of later. For example, you'll need a ton of coal in the late game to make diamonds. So you may want to think about using recipes like iron pipe to lessen the amount of coal you are using up in the early game. The most important thing to consider when picking recipes is how they work together. Don't just look at each recipe in isolation. Look how they synergize together. For example, say you're building a fuel plant. A great chain to use for this is to first turn your oil into heavy oil residue and then into fuel, as you'll end up with more fuel that way. But oh no, then you have a bunch of polymer resin as a byproduct. Well, you can easily sink that, but why not use the recycled rubber and plastic recipes to turn it into something more useful? You're already making the fuel, so just take a little bit of it to make some extra useful parts. By looking at the full production chain, you can make the game easier or get yourself some more parts by choosing recipes that work well together. The other thing you might want to consider when picking recipes with your production in mind is minimizing the amount of processes you have to do and therefore reducing the amount of work you have to do. The obvious example of this is cast screws. This recipe allows you to eliminate the need to make iron ingots into rods before turning them into screws and turning the ingots straight into screws. This saves a ton of time and makes production lines cleaner and easier to manage. But why not go a step further and remove the need for screws entirely? There are plenty of recipes that will remove the need for screws. For example, heavy encased frames. The standard recipe for heavy modular frames needs a ton of screws, making logistics more complex. So, removing them with this alt recipe simplifies your production chain. The simpler you can make something, the better, as it means there's less failure points and less parts you'll have to troubleshoot later. The amount of machines and the type will obviously have an effect on how much power you use in-game. You may want to choose recipes based on how much they cost you power-wise. I've seen other people write off power concerns by simply saying, well, just build more power plants. But this attitude just minimizes a huge part of the game. Not everyone is a content creator that has hours, days, weeks to spend building massive power plants. So maybe you want to move on to other production chains rather than just spending all your time building power plants. And there are plenty of other reasons to consider power when choosing recipes. I'm building my starter base at the moment and I'm trying to build it to run off this small coal power plant because If I have power problems later, I want to be able to run this off minimal power. We all know how tricky power can be in game, and we all dread this sound. Especially when problems with nuclear or fuel power plants can take hours of gameplay to surface. Sometimes you just want to get a factory done, or you're not very good at maths, like me. So you might just want to go with recipes that make the maths super easy and don't require you to build complex load balancers or spend hours troubleshooting a problem. Factories in this game get very complex, and although I know that's a big factor of why people enjoy factory games, if you enjoy the aesthetic side of the game, there's no harm in keeping it simple on the production side. You may see other people's factories producing thousands of parts per minute, but don't fall into the trap of thinking that's what makes a good factory. You play how you want to play. Plus, like I've said before, keeping things simple means that you have less failure points and things will be easier to troubleshoot later in the game. Hey Little Scratch, how you doing? Oh, you want to talk to the viewers? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Little Scratch. Subscribe to this channel if you like this video.
Oh, thanks buddy. Yeah, no problem. You go play with your Lego. I'll just finish up here. Another great thing to judge a recipe by is if it removes waste products from a production chain. Again, this is another way of simplifying things and making the game a bit easier. Or there are great alts out there that help you to deal with waste outputs. The best example here is wet concrete, which is great for removing waste water from a system. If you don't want to mess around trying to feed the wastewater created in an aluminium product back into the system, which can be very tricky to get right, you can just mix it with a little bit of limestone and sink the concrete to ensure the system runs smoothly. Judging a recipe based on how much you get out of it is a good metric to look at. Though remember, see how it synergizes with your full production chain and not just the output stated on the recipe. It may be possible to get higher total outputs, that's total output across all your machines, out of lower yield recipes by using higher yield recipes lower down the chain. This is a really good time to point out that although I am talking about resources, the production chain, power and output as separate points, they are all heavily interlinked and you can't really divorce one from the others. It's really more about how much weight you give to each one or which one is most important to you that helps you choose what recipes you want to use. At the end of the day, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with getting advice from others on what recipes are better than others, but just bear in mind that that person is coming at this with their own needs in mind, and that might not align with what your needs are in your builds. Hopefully this has helped you guys figure out which recipes will work best for you, and if you think I've missed anything, let me know down in the comments below. I also have a Discord linked in the description, so why not come and join? I might be adding some sweet little treats in there very soon. If you want a video with more tips on how to play, then check out this video. I've been Scratch, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.